on a new platform.
Sweet.
Do we have to check it? Let me just make sure we're all good to go. It's exciting. It's been in the works for a while, Lyle.
Yeah, it has. Too long. I've had a few delays here and there, and I don't know, things have come up. We've had a few good reasons to delay, I suppose.
Checking the Vida page. We're live. It's working. It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
So any of you freaks who are watching this live stream, whether it be on Twitter or YouTube, if you're on Twitter, I put a link to the Vida page in the tweet. Why don't you guys go watch it there? Because you can experiment and you can tip us with sats as you watch. And we have somebody in the room already. We have somebody in the Vida room already. Let's go.
Sweet. Yeah.
So what's going on in the background?
In the background of Vida?
Yeah.
Well, lots of stuff. You know, this is Vida.live, the platform that we're streaming to today. It's a new platform. We've kind of soft launched a few weeks ago, and basically it's the easiest way to monetize a live stream on the internet. So, you know, you can set a rate in sats and Bitcoin for someone to watch a stream. You can set a rate for people to chat in the room. You can set a rate for people to join the stage with you, like if you're doing a paid AMA, you know, or something like that. And we also have these really cool things we call room sponsorships, which can be turned on a room so that anybody watching something in the room is earning Bitcoin as they watch. And then the hosts can also earn Bitcoin based on the number of viewers that come into the room. So it's kind of a new way for a brand to sponsor a creator. The creator's in total control over, you know, which sponsors they enable on their room. And it's an easy way to sort of give sats to pretty much anyone, you know, any community.
Yeah. If you're on YouTube watching this and you want to go check it out, go to Vida.live and look up Marty Bent. That's where we're streaming.
Yeah.
On Vida. This is pretty powerful. I'm very excited.
Yeah, it's a cool tool. It's sort of, you know, another step in our vision to make earning Bitcoin online easy, to make monetizing any type of audience or interaction easy. You know, it's useful for podcasters like yourself. It's also useful, like if you're just a consultant charging money for your time. You know, it's easy for somebody to book a paid room with you. So yeah, it's a super useful tool. We do a lot of other things, like we do HD local recording, like you would get from something like Riverside. We do it totally for free. We also do stream forwarding, which is built in. That's totally free. Something you would normally pay for with a service like YouTube. I mean, like a Restream.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a powerful tool. It's all about monetization. It's all about, you know, giving your audience Bitcoin and earning Bitcoin from your audience. And you know, it's sort of the next step in a much larger vision of, you know, empowering people to earn Bitcoin online.
Yeah. I'm really excited about it, and particularly because you're building this, because I think your experience professionally in the telecoms industry and being around Bitcoin, I feel like I've been following you on Bitcoin Twitter for like almost a decade now.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
It has. It's got to been. It's getting close.
Yeah.
It's getting close. It's same thing to you. I mean, I've been following you for so long. I feel like I know you probably much better than I actually do, just because I've been following you for so long. You know, I was just talking to Andy from CrowdHealth, you know, right outside the studio, and we, you know, see each other on Twitter and interact on Twitter, and then, you know, you walk into the Commons and you see these people. So it's great. You know, if you're out there and you haven't been to the Bitcoin Commons here in Austin, you should come.
Yeah. And so let's talk about the story of like founding Vida. What were you doing before, and why did you feel like Vida was the company that you have dedicated your life to work on?
Yeah. Well, so I guess it was back in 2018. I was working for the telecom company that had acquired my previous company. I had done a startup. It was kind of one of the first, you know, online-only business phone systems, and we built a lot of infrastructure. You know, we made a white label version of that product. Eventually, we ended up cloning Twilio's like entire API stack on open source software, and sort of that's what powered our platform. And that caught the attention of this telecom company. At the time, they were a public company on the NASDAQ called Intelliquent, and they wanted to compete with Twilio in the market. And so they acquired my company. I joined and like led an API team. To sort of, keep that short. Basically, Twilio ended up becoming their biggest customer, so they didn't actually ended up competing, with Twilio. But in 2018, I was leading a team. We were hiring a bunch of machine learning engineers to basically spot fraud in the telecom in the network faster. Because if you know anything about telecom, fraud and spam is like a huge issue, and somebody that is running like a fraud campaign through your network to like a high cost destination, think like Native American reservation or like an international phone number, or like one of those numbers in Utah that you get spam calls from. Those actually cost a lot of money per minute to call, and so people do these traffic pumping campaigns to drive phone calls into these areas, and then they have like a brown bag deal with somebody that's getting paid, and so essentially they're making money to drive spam to these destinations. So we were trying to spot these things faster, and about that same time, it was 2018. The Lightning Network had become real, like the first version of LND hit the wild, and it just sort of fascinated me because it set off this light bulb that, wow, we can transfer value over the internet instantly now, and what would the telecom industry look like, now that we can transfer value instantly over the internet? What does that change? What does that enable? And one thing was like, okay, well, if our customers had to pay us in real time as they push traffic to our network, we wouldn't have these problems because the spammers wouldn't be able to afford to actually, spam our network and spam your phone. And so I kind of started playing and fiddling around with a SIP, a VoIP proxy that basically only worked if you fed it Bitcoin in real time. And similar to HTTP 402, which you guys are probably familiar with, SIP, the dominant VoIP protocol in the world, has SIP 402, which does the same thing. And it's a similar story, they sort of put it in the protocol thinking, yeah, surely one day we're going to be able to, send digital payments, but it wasn't possible until Lightning, right? And so I started implementing SIP 402, and, eventually sort of realized that this was a huge opportunity in a $1.4 trillion telecom market, and Lightning was going to inevitably change that market. And I wanted to be building a company that was creating tools and infrastructure and APIs to facilitate that transition. So yeah, that's kind of the story of what got me here.
Yeah. When you first told me that, it was mind-blowing. You never think of the underlying architecture of what happens when you make a phone call or do a FaceTime or do a live stream.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you explained to me like SIP is similar to HTTP and it has this 402 error, that's like mind-blowing. I've always thought like payments on the internet, payments POS system, but never thought like telecommunications, like making a phone call.
Yeah.
There's architecture that Bitcoin can fit into.
Absolutely. I mean, SIP is by far and away the dominant, voice video protocol used in telecom networks, all over the world. Most of the voice and video traffic all over the world is flowing over the SIP protocol in some form or fashion. And, it's not just for, telecom, like phones, PSTN phone systems. Like when you spin up a Vida room, and join the room, there's a SIP session being initiated over WebRTC, like from your browser. So, the same protocol that we can use to enable a carrier to bill for the traffic flowing through their network in real time lets us do the same thing in a web session, to your Vida room. So it's the same technology, but it's compatible with all of the existing telecom networks that are out there. And that's a real important part of our vision, because all of the Vida services, whether it's sending a paid message or like paying to watch a live stream or paying to join a Vida room, conference room, that's the same technology that would be used by a international carrier that is sending a voice call to Latin America, and they're eliminating their settlement risk because they're getting paid in real time as that call progresses.
Yeah, and You quantified the telecommunications industry as a $1.4 trillion industry, but when it comes to like settlement risk and spamming, like how big of a problem is that from a monetary perspective?
It's a $20 to $40 billion annual, problem. So essentially, telecom companies lose that much money every year to these spam and fraud campaigns. Lately there's been like a huge regulatory push in the United States, especially around SMS spam. We're all tired of getting the SMS spam and spam hitting your phones. Our phones just constantly, ring all the time. Why? Because it's free. It's literally free for a spammer to make your phone ring, right? That's the underlying problem. And, the government's trying to like create all these rules. There's these new things called stir shaken, which is kind of like they make anyone originating a call into the PSTN use a special certificate so that they can trace the spam back to the source, but it's kind of a losing battle. But if we just could address the real issue, which is it's free to make your phone ring, if we could put a price on making that happen, even if it was just a few sats, it would completely eliminate all of that. So it's going to take us a while to, change this $20 to $40 billion a year problem, with Bitcoin, but my view is that over time, all the telecom networks are going to wake up to the fact that this is now possible. And, part of them waking up is going to be us sort of telling that story.
Yeah. And so functionally, how does it work? How would it work in your grand vision in the future when the infrastructure is all built out, Lightning's fully enabled for an end user? What does that look like when they're making a call? They have to send some sats. Is there like a staking thing where they get them back, or is it a de minimis amount where?
Yeah, I think it's a de minimis amount, but I think whatever app or phone you're using to make that call is essentially going to have a wallet associated with it, and then the destination is going to have a wallet associated with it, and then if you want to make somebody's phone buzz, you have to pay whatever the destination rate is. Sometimes maybe those rates will be set by, the carrier providing the service. Maybe they're set by the end user, directly. That's my hope, is that end users have control over, the prices, of the price for distracting them, right, with some notification. But it could turn out, lots of different ways. I can't predict the future. All I know is that real-time settlement's definitely going to be used in this, in this industry, and it's going to need some specific building blocks in order to make, any of these use cases happen. So we're sort of starting at the bottom and, and building up.
Yeah. And so what's the settlement time dilation like right now?
Yeah. It can take, 30, 60, 90 days for a carrier, to get paid for traffic that they handle on behalf of another carrier. Like, another good example is like international roaming. So let's say you take your phone to France and like your phone is connected to like an Orange Telecom, tower in France, and you're using data that they're providing, through their tower. And, you go home and then like 90 days later, Orange gets paid, by AT&T or something like that. Right. So this isn't about just like legacy phone call, VoIP calls or like, legacy SMSs. It's about international data roaming, but also it's about enabling spam prevention on new protocols like Nostr. We've already seen the power of, zaps as a signal, on a Twitter-like, post in Nostr. But the same thing could be done with a DM, right? Why don't we have Nostr clients that let you set a DM threshold such that the client only shows DMs in your inbox if they've been zapped, based on whatever your minimum, amount is that you set, to capture your attention. My view is that that's going to be the inevitable path that Nostr clients take, because they're going to face the same spam problems that, all other open protocols face. So, something we've been doing in Vida is integrating as much as possible with Nostr. You can, log in. You can, if you land in a Vida room right now where this live stream is going, you're going to get a little pop-up if you have a Nostr extension installed that says, hey, log in with Nostr right now. You log in, we import your Lightning address. So if you get paid, it goes straight to your Lightning address. We use non-custodial WebLN to, zap the room, just like you would in any other Nostr client. Later, we want to merge our messaging interface with Nostr encrypted DMs behind the scenes so that it's cross-compatible, we're not trying to build a walled garden. We're trying to sort of set an example of what real-time payments, how real-time payments can enhance and enable communications in different ways.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see you really lean in to Nostr.
Yeah,
and then what we were discussing last week too, like leaning into the AI stuff and how this new open communication protocol with Nostr and this new productivity tool in AI can sort of supercharge what you're able to build.
Yeah. We have, I hesitate to say this, but we've rolled out an experiment actually last night where anyone with a Vida account can actually go in and turn on an AI agent on their Vida account. And it's pretty simple. Like you configure this welcome message that this AI agent will, send to anybody that lands on the landing page for the AI agent. It's like vida.cash / whatever your username is. And then you can tell the agent, hey, I want you to ask questions about this video that you just, provided to the user and make sure they understood X, Y, or Z about the video, right? So imagine you're a marketer and you are, promoting a product, right? And you've got like this 60-second ad or like promotional video about, some product you're releasing. So the bot says, hey, I'm here to give out Bitcoin rewards if you talk to me about this video. And so the user watches the video, they say, okay, I'm ready. The chatbot responds, what did you think about like the color of the, Cadillac, in this video, right? User responds, what's your favorite thing, about this new Cadillac? Like, what do you like most about it? User responds. And then after a couple of questions, the bot responds, hey, here's 200 sats, for telling me about this. And it's the same Vida messaging interface that, you can use to charge for receiving messages. It's just the opposite. It's one that does the opposite. It's one that pays out Bitcoin for interacting with it. And so, our hope with this tool is that it's sort of a backdoor way to get, brands and products and people spending money to promote their products to essentially buy Bitcoin, and give it out to millions of people. So we'll see. It's an experiment, but yeah, check it out. Go to vida.live or vida.page, click on automations and set one up and, see what happens.
Yeah. And for like the end user flow too, I think what you're doing by leaning in the Nostr, if somebody has a Nostr profile set up with an LN address in it, it's making it very seamless to get paid as an end user across the internet. I mean, Vida is just one example, but I think what you just described, if you use the Nostr sign-in flow, it's like seamless monetization for the end user.
Yeah, it goes straight to you. We don't touch your money. That's a big part of, we've been, it takes a lot of time actually to, make your product work non-custodially. There's still a lot of, pain points in doing that. But, every year or every month they get, the community sort of solves a few more of them, makes it easier. Now things are easy enough such that, you can have a Lightning address, which was a huge win. Andre from Zebedee, sort of inventing that was a huge thing because it's easy. It's just like it's an email address that you can use to receive Bitcoin. So, getting Vida to work with Lightning addresses so you can bring any Lightning address to the platform, and anytime you get paid on the platform, it goes straight to your Lightning address. That was a big thing. And then recently, over the past couple of weeks, rolling out WebLN support so that, you can make payments to other Vida users, whether you're chatting with them, whether you're on a one-on-one call with them, whether you're in a room with them. And, we don't touch your money. It goes straight from your WebLN enabled wallet. And, if the user on the other side has a Lightning address, it goes straight to their Lightning address and we're not in the middle. But, the number of people that sort of can use these non-custodial tools is still very small. So, we do support just signing up and, custodying your funds, for now to make it easy. But we're hoping to, eventually be able to sort of, lead users into using it non-custodially.
Yeah. And so what are your thoughts on the current state of Lightning? Obviously, you're building on it. There's a lot of naysayers out there.
You mean like in the recent high fee environment?
Yes.
Yeah, there's been so much anti-Lightning FUD, in this high fee environment. A lot of it seems to originate from people that, were maybe running a Lightning node and perhaps they had like this forced channel close or something while fees were high. And that sucks. We definitely need our Lightning nodes to, better handle situations like that. But I mean, the fact still remains that if you have a Lightning wallet and that wallet has some connectivity to a channel with capacity, you can send Bitcoin instantly without, hitting the mempool and without paying fees. Like, that's still the reality. I think that, in the future, things like Fedimints and, things like that are going to make onboarding users much easier. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's, people are just mad and,
Yeah.
yelling on Twitter.
Yeah. So, not being rude, I'm opening my phone. We have 11 people in the Vida live chat. It's audio only. Can you turn on the video in Vida? If you go to the Vida page.
It should be picking up the video.
I was considering restarting just Vida's end of it to see if that'll fix it.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's like a weird Restream issue.
It might be Restream. Restream's been weird about that sometimes about certain platforms.
No, but it's been cool. I mean, you freaks can't see it. Maybe we can pull it up on the screen, though, Logan, for anybody watching, just to give them a view of what it's like in the chat. We've been zapped 4 times. We got people chatting. And so, like, for RHR specifically, which is a live show every week, this is something that we're going to integrate and hopefully move our live chat over to Vida.
Yeah.
And we'll be able to overlay this on the screen, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. It's it's fascinating how good it works too. It just works.
Yeah, well, it's taken a lot of time to get that, to get the UX right, and doing real time video is not simple, but fortunately we've had experience building things like this before. Not simple as the video is not even showing on the, on the platform. Hopefully we'll figure that out. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, we want to build tools that are useful, right? We want to build tools that are useful to people in a variety of contexts that make it easy to earn Bitcoin online. And we want to make it easy for brands to be able to, cut people in to their promotional campaigns so that, they're earning when they're giving up their attention to a brand. Like, fundamentally, that's a big problem on the internet, right? We consume these ads on all these platforms all the time. They're monetizing our attention. They're monetizing our time sort of without our consent and without us getting anything for it, And if we can tweak tools and build platforms that let brands, cut an audience into, their promotion, then it better aligns the incentives of the brand user relationship. And we distribute sats to people using marketing dollars that are already getting spent, out in the wild. And, that's a hugely powerful thing. I mean, if we can create a product that, Apple wants to use, to promote something in the future, that's a ton of money flowing into Bitcoin, that people, like you and me, plebs are getting in their pockets.
Yeah. And with the AI chatbot specifically, like, the brands love this because you're like forced to interact and actually pay attention. And then and we talked about this last week, you get rewarded in sats for that. Like, what does that sat reward do psychologically for the consumer? They're like, oh, I got sats from this brand. Maybe I should go buy their product.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe the brand can even, boost it if you do go buy the product, give you sats back, if you come back and say, yeah, hey, I followed up on this and I actually bought this thing, But yeah, I mean, it's still early in our vision, but we're moving quickly. It's only 3 of us, full time so far. Me and my co-founders, Brandon and Noah. And yeah, it's been great. Those guys, they're super talented. I couldn't have done all this by myself. And I'm fortunate to have those guys, to sort of,
Well,
I don't know, help make this vision a reality.
Well, I mean, I've gotten to know you very well, and Brandon and Noah not as well, but well enough to know that I think you guys as a team building in Bitcoin is something that anybody listening to this who's a hardcore Bitcoiner should be extremely excited about, because you guys are competent killer builders who have all successfully launched and sold companies in the past, and have now dedicated yourselves to building out a product that leverages Bitcoin in a very unique and powerful way.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think it's inevitable that like more teams like ours, move into building on Bitcoin. I mean, I guess the Lightspark, David Marcus, like he's another example of somebody who's been successful in some other context, who's now understood the truth about Bitcoin and the Lightning Network, and is now building in the space. And over time, that's inevitable. More people are going to wake up because Lightning is the best protocol for instantly sending value over the internet. I mean, it's not like a debatable thing when you understand, the limitations of blockchains, and digital currencies and how things work. Like Lightning is the best, and it's going to pull in teams like ours, and it's going to snowball. It's just sort of still the beginning.
Yeah. To give the freaks a little history of your team, because you guys have worked together, not broken up, but like done your own thing, and then eventually gotten back together.
Yeah. So Noah and I actually were college roommates. Back in college, we used to run this website called VGPro, videogamepro.com. And it started out as like a file site, like a video game file site. So like if you wanted to download a patch, for a game, you would come to our website to do that. Or like if you are a mod publisher and you wanted to like upload your mod for the community to, download it, you could do that on VG Pro. You could like put your own ads so that your ads were shown on your mod pages, so you could sort of monetize your mods. So like Noah and I were working on internet monetization, like 15 years ago, or actually longer than that. I'm kind of, aging myself, but yeah, I mean, we've been working on this for a long time. VG Pro, we had like 1.5 million uniques a month, on the website. So it was pretty significant traffic profile. But we also remember like getting totally screwed by ad networks, back then. We would make like cents per CPM while they would be, charging brands and stuff, $30, CPM or something like that. And so we always sort of wanted to create better monetization tools that, rewarded the content producers, in a more equitable way, and then also rewarded the people consuming those advertisements, as well. And, here many years later, we've come back together and, started working on that. Noah's a really super talented guy. He's one of those rare guys that can, actually code and build and design, and make things look incredible. Has a real mind for user experience and, making things work well. He was previously an entrepreneur in residence at Gradient Ventures, which is Google's AI venture arm. Before that, he founded a company called Radius. They raised like $130 million and sold. And then Brandon, I met at Inteliquent. He sort of joined through a different acquisition from mine, but, we're sort of, similar contexts, similar stages in life, similar interests. We worked together for 5 years while we were there. And when I left to do Vida, it was just sort of like a no-brainer, for him to come along too. He's also super talented engineer, builder, business guy. He's led 150 person engineering teams, so knows about building organizations at scale and building networks and systems that, have to function at scale. So, I mean, I'm super blessed to, to have these two guys, building this with me.
Yeah. No, it shows in the product. Like, it's beautiful. Thanks. It works. And again, I'm extremely excited to have builders like you three in this space. Not to denigrate anybody who's been building in the space to date, but again, we've had this thesis that eventually it's similar to the 90s where people didn't realize it, but everybody was going to be a quote unquote internet company.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in that similar period with Bitcoin where everybody's going to not be a Bitcoin company, but they're going to have Bitcoin integrated into their stack. And it takes competent builders that can actually build and then scale a product to bring that thesis and that vision to fruition.
Yeah. And, it's like no builder, can predict the future, but you can sort of have an idea about, what the future is going to look like. You can have an idea about how a piece of technology is going to influence, the way an industry moves, like telecom or like advertising or marketing. And, it's fortunate to be working with guys that understand that you can't nail, the perfect sort of idea of how the future is going to manifest. Like on the first try, like it takes constant iteration, constant building, willingness to get your hands dirty, willingness to try something, throw it away if it doesn't work, willingness to try something if it does seem like it's working to, reinvest heavily quickly, to flesh it out. And that's what we've been doing, for the past year, actually not quite a year. And, looking forward to kind of continuing that momentum, continuing to build that momentum. I guess we can talk about this. Haven't really talked about it publicly anywhere else, but, we just closed some fundraising, some funding. Thank you, 1031, for participating in that.
We're very excited.
Yeah. We've already brought on one person in sort of a part-time role that we're hoping to bring on full-time, soon. So we're already sort of beginning to expand the team and, more resources to push this vision along and push the rock up the hill.
Yeah. And what we're trying to do now by showcasing this on Vida, because you mentioned Restream earlier, like ideally at some point in the next couple months, we just completely replace Restream with Vida. We do all of our RTMP. What is it?
Yeah, RTMP.
RTMP forwarding from Vida instead of going to Restream.
Yeah.
And I pay a lot for Restream per month just to do all that, just to do the forwarding and the aggregation of the different social platforms we send it to. So it's a highly valuable product, but it also excites me incredibly because it creates this vision of what people talk about crossing the chasm into the mainstream for Bitcoin. Like once it gets caught up in the minds of influencers, or I shouldn't say content creators that aren't really privy to Bitcoin or aware of Bitcoin, and they find that they can get a Restream-like experience with Vida, and not only that, they get the added benefit of embedded monetization.
Yeah. That
could be massive for adoption.
Yeah, I mean, that's that sort of bigger point in general of, if we want to expand, the footprint of Bitcoiners, we want to bring people in to, using Bitcoin. Like we need to build products that normal people that don't necessarily care about Bitcoin can get value from, right? Regardless. And, by getting value in some, way unrelated to Bitcoin, but by placing sort of Bitcoin as a part of the bigger experience that they can also benefit from, we show them the benefits. We're not telling them, we're showing them the benefits of turning on this feature, enabling payments on their chat, enabling, payments on their join to participate. But at the same time, we're still providing this high quality product that, functions as well as Restream, does the things that Restream does, functions as well as Riverside, does HD local recordings. Shout out to Kevin Rook, who has been helping us test our HD local recording a lot over the past few weeks. But yeah, he's a good example. He used to record all his podcasts on Riverside because they do the HD local recording where it doesn't matter how bad the internet connection is of the person joining. You're still going to get that high quality local stream from your participant, and you can do that for free in Vida in a Vida room. So there's no reason to go use a product like Riverside, and that's tangible value that anyone can get benefit from. And over time we hope that by offering that those points of tangible value, we get more creators using our platform, using our product, creating and recording their podcasts and turning them into live shows, on the platform, and then in turn exposing them to the rest of our tools.
Yeah. And again, getting very excited here because we talked about the bigger picture of like telecom, the settlement risk, the potential there, and the opportunity to fix that problem. That's why we're very excited at 1031 to be partnering with Vida and supporting you guys, is because it goes well beyond telecom when you get like content creators into the mix. Like there's a wide spectrum of places that you guys can fit into.
Yeah, absolutely. Fundamentally communications, right? Telecommunications. I mean, it's fundamentally about, connecting, people to one another, and like the telecommunications industry manifests like in tons of things, like Zoom, right, is a part of the telecommunications industry, or, Google Meet, right? That's like a telecommunications product. YouTube, a YouTube stream, right, is another good example. So like it touches everything. Communication tools touch everything, all kinds of business interactions, all kinds of, products, use APIs, communication APIs under the hood. And, we're just trying to build, useful things in that industry, and that leverages Bitcoin, to settle the value of that communication. And, eventually we're going to find all sorts of use cases that, that are valuable. Even like things like just conferences, like helping conferences monetize, their paid live streams. A couple of weeks ago, BTC++ used Vida, to monetize their live stream. It's literally just sending an RTMP stream to the platform, and you have a paid, a live stream. Like there's not an easier way to do it. So if you're listening to this and you put it on a conference, use Vida.
Yeah. You put that's like the lightning paywall to get in, like similar we have with the newsletter when we do the paywall post, but it's for live streaming. It's again, very exciting that we're at this point. Like, did you think, going back to like Bitcoin more broadly, did you think Bitcoin would be at this stage where you can build these types of tools? Because you've been in it for a while. Yeah.
I remember reading the Lightning Network paper in 2017, I guess is when it was. Yeah, 2017. Maybe it was 2016 when the paper came out.
It might be 2016.
I can't remember. But, I remember being a little bit skeptical because, it seemed complex, right? And that was a lot of the early, sort of hate, against Bitcoin. Oh, this is too complex. It'll never work, right? Well, building things that scale is hard, right? There's a reason why it's complex. Like you can't, the world's communication cannot run on a base layer. Whether your blocks are, 10 terabytes big, or whether you're, whether you can handle, 17,000 transactions a second, like Solana or something like that. It doesn't matter. Like that's still a tiny portion of what the world needs. And to, have a protocol like Lightning that scales, it has some additional complexity, but that's why it works. And, in 2018, when I was working on that project and LND came out and it was working, it's like, okay, well, this is actually a reasonable path. And, it's only been a year and it's already doing this, what are the Bitcoiners going to build, in another year from now and another year from now. And now, holy crap, it's 2023, today, and we can do stuff like this, and we have people like David Marcus also building in the space, and and we have so much more momentum, and it's only been a few years, and we have like decades ahead, Yeah.
No, I feel fortunate, not just for myself, but for my children, for humanity more broadly, that we do have the ability to build this stuff right now. Because you look out at the world,
it's getting very necessary.
Yes, it's desperately needed.
Yeah, for sure. It's the world's getting crazy. Part of me, hopes it slows down a little bit, because we've got a lot of stuff to build. The past week, with the fee spike, I think it's sort of opened everyone's eyes to, wow, this could happen at any moment, right? There's nothing in the protocol preventing fees from increasing by an order of magnitude tomorrow if some event happens, right? Maybe that event is like some shit coiners putting shit on the chain, or maybe that event is like, a major nation, adopting, or like, something leaking that, somebody's mining, or something like that.
Which has been happening.
Right? So, I mean, at any day, my point is that the base chain, can become a lot more expensive. And we as Bitcoiners have a lot of work to do to make sure that, we have the necessary tools, available for users to keep growing and, builders to keep building.
So what would you define as your like low hanging fruit of stuff that needs to get done that's actionable, like in the short term to?
Yeah. Well, I think personally, I'm like super bullish on Feta mints and, the stuff that the guys at Feta are doing, Justin Moon. I mean,
he's right behind us.
Yeah. Justin, I mean, you're doing great work, but, I mean, it's something like that is going to be necessary, because it's the easiest onboarding tool, for sort of a unaware, non-technical person to use. The other thing is that for services like Vida, applications that are trying to be able to provide a service, to users in a way that we don't have to hold their money, right? If every Lightning product out there like Vida has to be partially custodial, that's not going to work long term, right? I mean, eventually the government's going to make it too hard, or something. It's just not going to work, right? But if you could log into Vida with a Fedi account, and sort of bring your money into the service, right? It would make things a lot easier. So I think we need more things like that as fast as possible.
Same.
Even things like LN bits, behind the scenes, like if we had a whole bunch of people running, Uncle Jim LN bits nodes, that would be helpful too. But we need the privacy layer of Feta mints and Chaumy and eCash to sort of close the loop on that UX equation, I think.
Yeah, I agree. It's got to get a lot easier for the masses. That's why I actually dropped an episode with Obi this morning talking about where they're at, and they're getting close to launch. And again, that UX of just,
man, what they've done, like how they've sort of, shifted their vision and turned it into like this mobile app that lets any community sort of onboard into like this, essentially like it's like this, I don't know, community bank, in an app. It's really amazing. I was talking to a guy about this, I guess it was earlier this week over beers, and he's like really interested in building, sort of self-sustainable agricultural communities, and co-ops and stuff. Mm-hmm. And we got to talking about like how, big industry, big farming is like destroyed a lot of part of America, a lot of sort of the, I don't know how to say this, it's destroyed a bit of the, the legacy in, the legacy of the small family farm that used to be self-sufficient and self-sustaining, and well, one of the big, misaligned incentives that has destroyed that, is fiat money, and we got into all that. But now, you can create this sort of community bank, that where the incentives of the bank are completely aligned with the community's purpose, whatever that is. And I think that's going to be a powerful, super powerful thing.
I do as well. Sorry. I've got, my son's got a sickness that my wife's texting me about. I just had to get that.
That's more important for sure.
Yeah. No, but it's feels like it's needed now more than ever. Like just getting it to that point where it's easy for people to onboard. Again, crossing the chasm with a product like Vida, where you sort of Trojan horse it into the massive content creators out there. And then you think about how viral can get there, where you have, like, there's this show, whatever, where this guy in California brings on all these girls to talk
Oh,
about
yeah.
like the
Yeah.
the dating, the dating scene in the world right now, and they monetize via super chats. And I think about this with my YouTube page too, because we turned on monetization recently, and like it's net 30, and we don't even.
And they're taking 50%.
And they're taking 50%, and like all it is going to take is, from the Vida perspective, is one big content creator be like, holy crap,
Yeah.
I'm making and keeping more money than I ever had, settling instantly. That's letting me reinvest in what I'm doing quicker. I'm partnering with advertisers who are willing to spend more because they know they can get better attention with this AI chatbot that can demand sort of attention from the end user. And so that's like on the content creator side. Something like Fetty, you have this user experience where it's just easy to onboard and people are using it. And you have the viral nature of that where it's, hey, it took me five minutes to get on this app and I received money instantly from another part of the world. Similarly, we've seen this with Strike and their send globally, like people in Vietnam who use it for the first time. They're like, holy crap, I got money in 2 minutes and I didn't pay 10% in fees.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many flywheels that are beginning to turn, you know, it's like, you know, 2 or 3 years ago, right, we had a couple of flywheels and they were just barely budging, right? And, you know, we were all having to sort of push them to get them to turn, right? And now they're beginning to get some momentum. You know, there's a whole lot more, there's a whole lot more things that are sort of driving people into the ecosystem. And, those things are only going to grow. But, we do have to stay focused on like providing real tangible value that people want and need to use, right? Like there's no way that Vida as like a content destination is going to replace YouTube like anytime soon, right? But we can provide a great experience that makes producing content, really easy and makes monetizing that content really easy, where you can still push the content to YouTube where your audience is. And then over time, as that audience moves, to Vida, well then, that's great. That helps us. But
well, I think that's another product feature to highlight. Is like, it's not just for live streaming. Like the video will live on the platform after it's been recorded.
Yeah. People can come and, watch the replay, on Vida. If you're sort of originating a stream from Vida, you can push it out to other destinations, like YouTube or Twitter or wherever your audience is. We've got a lot of plans for like overlaying monetization into those video feeds that go out to those other destinations, So, it's again, it's still the beginning, but it's such a big space. The building blocks that we're building are so useful, in such a broad variety of contexts that, it's sort of inevitable that we find, people that want to use them. I mean, it's communication tools with monetization. It's a useful thing.
It's very useful. And again, with Nostr too, like the blending, it feels like you could see like the slow merge towards that protocol.
Yeah, I'm a huge Nostr fan.
Are we allowed to talk about what you guys are thinking from the relay perspective?
Yeah, for sure. So like we have this media server that, powers things like our video calls and our video rooms, right? It's built on open source tech. In fact, the media server itself is actually open source today. I think if you go on my GitHub, you can find it. But, the vision is that we want to let anybody deploy one of these media servers. And they're designed to be run alongside a Nostr relay. We haven't released the stuff that sort of the Nostr hooks that hook into the media server that make it easy for anyone with a Nostr pub key to sort of host one of these. That's what we're trying to finish up. But the vision is that you can run one of these media servers alongside a Nostr relay, and it essentially becomes like a voice video relay server, Nostr relay server, that you can interact with your Nostr pub keys. Another example is like the chat and Vida rooms. We're working on mirroring to NIP28 public chat rooms in Nostr. So, at the chat in a Vida room, you can open up in a Nostr chat client, and interact with the chat. Like, you don't have to use our clients. Again, we're not, we're not trying to build a walled garden, app. We're trying to build new tools that the community, can use. And that includes, like, if you're hosting one of these media servers, you can, like, all of your streams can originate from your media server. And if you go live and broadcast that stream, all the other Nostr relay servers will know where to access the broadcast and be able to relay the actual, broadcast, so that we're not dependent on, centralized, broadcast platforms like YouTube. So that's, it's still in the works, but I think Nostr is very powerful because it's simple. It's a relatively simple protocol, and that makes it easy to build on. It makes it easy for, people like us who, we're not like Nostr experts, but we know how WebSockets work, and we know how, like, pushing events works, and it lets us sort of build this into the ecosystem in a way that is useful to, others in the community.
Yeah. I mean, it's been mind-blowing to see the innovation that's been happening on Nostr. I mean, it started with Damus and Snort Social and similar Twitter-like clients, but seeing it expand into different types of presentations for the events that are streamed over Nostr or pushed to Nostr.
Yeah, I mean, like, Elon just yesterday, was talking about how he's, trying to bring encrypted voice and video calls, to Twitter. And, supposedly they have, like, encrypted DMs, which are,
suspect.
I wouldn't trust your, your personal information with that yet. So, but, that's what he's trying to do, right? Twitter already have spaces, right? Not the Nostr community, Nostr clients need tooling to be able to also offer experiences like that. With our Vida media relay server, you can host, audio rooms like spaces, but you can also do full video rooms, with full broadcasts. You can do one-on-one encrypted video calls, end-to-end encrypted audio calls with ZRTP. So, like, we hope to be able to, provide this sort of piece of infrastructure that others can, continue building on, such that eventually, if you're on Vida hosting a live stream, maybe someone else is watching that, and consuming that in some other Nostr client, participating in the chat in some other Nostr client, zapping your room with some other Nostr client. There's no reason why that can't happen.
No. And another thing, too, that you've been leveraging as well, that we talked about last week, is, like, AI as a way to help you actually build and think through problems. And if you're comfortable sharing, I mean, the story you told me last week of how much time you saved.
Yeah. I mean, there's a ton of hype, right, with ChatGPT and GPT-4, but there's also a ton of value. I mean, it is a useful tool. If you are a developer, right, and you've ever tried to, like, you're trying to build something or engineer something that you haven't ever, done before or approached before, right? Typically, you'd go to Google, right, and start Googling, right? Start reading Stack Overflow, start reading forum posts about how somebody has approached this problem before and how you can sort of fit that into your context, right? I mean, I am an expert Googler, I'm a self-taught, programmer. Google taught me, how to code, right? I mean, it's been a long time, but Google taught me. But now, if you have a problem, a coding challenge or something you're trying to figure out, how to do, you can literally ask this thing and it gives you examples, of code. And then, if the example comes back and it doesn't quite fit your context, you can just give it your context and it rewrites it, specifically for you. And I don't know how much time I've saved, over the past couple of months, like, feeding problems into this thing and it giving, valuable solutions. Now, it doesn't mean that it's like, spitting you out like perfect bug-free thing that you can just like paste into your platform, but it's a lot more and a lot more faster, useful, output than sort of, spending a few hours researching a problem, collecting, solutions and, and going about it like that. And just over the past few months, sort of interacting with GPT in these ways, sort of made it clear that, there was an opportunity for us to leverage things like that in Vida, to provide, again, useful communication tools for individuals or for brands, who are trying to promote products, useful tools that help us sort of distribute sats to more people faster, which is sort of a big goal of mine with Vida.
Yeah, no, I was playing around with one of the AI agent softwares and the browser softwares yesterday, and just fed it like a simple prompt, like, hey, check out my website, tftc.io, and help me figure out like a SEO strategy to get better discovery on the search engines.
Yeah.
It ran, it like looked at the website, figured out, and telling anything about the website. I was like, all right, you talk about Bitcoin a lot. Let's search Bitcoin for like the top keywords. And then it was like, all right, I'm going to download this open source scraper and like scrape the web to figure out.
Yes.
And it did that like, and I'm thinking, and I spent $1 for it to do all of that and like spit me out like a strategy with like the words and how best to improve SEO. That would have cost me like thousands of dollars.
Yeah. It's, there's no denying it. It is it's a disruptive thing. My hope is that, well, actually last week there was this sort of leaked internal report from Google where they were talking about, where Google was talking about OpenAI doesn't have a moat, Google doesn't have a moat. People using these open source LLMs are already outperforming, what we can do. The cat's out of the bag, right? And we as sort of a developer community that loves freedom. That's what Bitcoiners are, right? Like we need to make sure that the open source community keeps pace, right? Because there's definitely some dystopian things that could come about if like there's one big LLM provider and like you
need to use WorldCoin to access it.
Orb dude, Sam Orb dude. So it's like that could be bad, right? But I'm confident that we'll figure out cool things, and we'll be able to actually push forward with open source tool sets and open source LLMs, weights that we can feed into other projects and not sort of be dependent upon these monolithic providers. Even Google is afraid of the open source community and what they're doing already.
Could you explain like the difference between like an open source AI LLM and the weighting system and what OpenAI or Google or Microsoft's doing?
Yeah, I could give it a shot. So, an LLM is trained on tons of input, tons of data, right? And it's just a pattern matcher, right? It's something that you give it a prompt and it's literally generating, word by word, really less than that, letter character by character, and trying to sort of fit a pattern that matches the input that it that it was fed, right? Well, a while back, Facebook open sourced an LLM. I can't remember how many inputs theirs has versus OpenAI, but there's been a lot of innovation to essentially do more with less. And so this open source thing that Facebook released is now powering tons of open source projects. For totally free. Like people have this LLM running in the browser, like using Wasm, running on mobile, and maybe it's not like exactly as good as GPT-4, in certain contexts, but it's literally been like 2 months, So it's like, it's the thing about these LLMs is like if you have the weights, you have everything you need.
What are the weights?
It's hard to explain. It's think of it like your brain, right? You have all these neurons in your brains, right? In your brain. And there are these connections, right, between each neuron in your brain. And some of those connections are like stronger, than others. And so like when your eyes receive input, like, and it's feeding through neurons in your brain, right? You're used to looking at things in a specific way. And so your neurons in your brain are like weighted, right, to consume that information, filter it in a certain way, right? LLM weights are kind of the same thing, right? It's thousands, millions of parameters of weights where you put in information and it's filtering through this, graph of neurons, to sort of come up with an output, right? And those weights are like, you can sort of, if once they leak, like they're out, right? You don't have to retrain the whole LLM. Like the weights are like sort of, it's like taking a brain, and sort of plugging it into something else. And if you think about it, it's kind of scary because like, what if some company does create, a much more powerful,
evil weight
system, and those weights get leaked to like North Korea, or something like that, right? I wonder how much, these companies are investing in security, for these things. I guess we'll find out, over the next few months.
Yeah. In the context of like open source versus the closed source, you have to imagine that the open source is going to win out just because people are going to want to use it for free, and then they'll get so much more data.
Yeah. Like the argument, there's been an argument, for the past, I don't know, a few years, a while, that, open source can't win the AI race because all the data that you train, these LLMs on is like proprietary. It's like a good example is like Tesla, right? Tesla cars are much better at self-driving than like anything else. And the reason for that is they've been collecting real driving data, for over a decade now. Real driving data in like all sorts of scenarios, right? And that data that is being fed into their machine learning, self-driving algorithms is valuable, right? Like if GM, when they bought Cruise, if they would have had the same data, they'd probably be a lot further, now with their efforts. But it's like the counter argument is that like data is everywhere. It's like, the internet is full of it, right? It's like unless you're training something for a very, very specific use case that needs like very, very specific, hard to collect data, like you can get data everywhere. The entire internet, is just data. And that's what these LLMs have been, fed on. And now we already have an open source one that's being leveraged and improved in like tons of ways. And so I don't know, I guess I'm, maybe not confident, but I'm hopeful that like, the open source community can build enough of a bastion to, to compete against these, these orb scanners.
The Sam Orb guy, Orb dude. No, it's funny too that Facebook released the open source one. Is Zuck having like a come to Jesus moment? He's doing Muay Thai. He's
that's a good question.
Getting jacked.
Surfing, e-foiling. Maybe he is. Maybe he's actually becoming a Bitcoiner too. Watching his buddy David Marcus, do stuff over there. I don't know. We'll see.
That would be, talk about a crossing the chasm moment.
Yeah, it would.
Obviously, they did Libra and all that. Or tried to. Got shot down pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hold my breath for Zuck, though.
Me neither. But thanks for the LLM.
Do you think this stuff can be applied to like Bitcoin? You make Lightning better? Could it? It's helping you build your products, I guess.
Yeah, I think what these things do is they help people do more with less. We're going to see like teams. We're going to see very small teams do, build incredible companies and produce incredible content. Like Hollywood's probably going to die. like you're going to be able to produce a movie, like three dudes in a garage are going to be able to just produce this incredible, stuff using these tools. But, like if we can do it, like anybody else can do it too, right? So it's lowering the barriers, to creating incredible things. So, I think that it's going to, it's going to change the world for sure, because it's going to empower capable people to do even more. Is it going to disrupt a ton of stuff? Absolutely.
Arguably already has, right?
Yeah. The government is going to print so much money trying to keep the world the same. It's going to be nuts. The world is going to change, and the government's not going to like that because it's going to change so much. It's going to, destroy all sorts of things, but I don't know, buckle up, I guess.
Nah, it's really, it's a Chinese proverb or curse. May you live in interesting times, and at any point in history, the person living in the present could say this is the most interesting time. But it does seem like this is the most interesting time when you factor in the unraveling of the banking, financial, centralized government system that seems to be losing control, and there's a collapse in confidence, and then you have the rise of Bitcoin and this, which is a deflationary currency with massive deflationary pressures on the tech side with stuff like AI.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like how, like, it feels like we're in the middle of like a washing machine, and all this stuff is going on at once.
Yeah, it's I mean, you know, I've heard these arguments that, like, you know, AI is communism, you know, and like Bitcoin is, you know, democracy or libertarianism or whatever. But like, if you think about it in the context of smaller groups of people are going to be able to do more with less, that fundamentally is a hugely decentralizing force, right? What would have previously taken, you know, sort of a combined organization of thousands of people, you know, to accomplish, which is like a, you know, a centralizing force, right? It requires all of these, you know, this organization, you know, supporting all of these thousands of people to sort of accomplish something. And then you're going to say, okay, well, now with these tools, a small group of people can accomplish the same thing. That's decentralizing in society, you know, that's not centralizing. So maybe the training or whatever is centralized, but if we have these open source systems, it's very empowering, you know, for a more decentralized world, I think. And I wouldn't have told you that a year ago, you know,
Really?
because, you know, I was still, you know, worried that these things would only be, you know, created and accessible in these walled gardens, you know?
Yeah. No, I'm very optimistic. I'm not well versed or frankly smart enough to dissect the AI sphere well enough to know whether or not it's going to kill us in the future. But my gut says this is going to be a positive for humanity. I think there's a lot of modern day Luddites out there who are sounding the alarm bells.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's going to be pluses and minuses. You know, it's like spam on the internet is going to get way worse, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, you're not going to be able to tell, you know, if you're interacting with one of these things, you know, in your chat on your YouTube, you know, show or whatever, right? Like, spam in general is going to get much, much worse now that you can, you know, create these artificial agents that are so much more convincing, you know, than what you could previously do, which is, you know, perhaps another long-term, you know, force that pushes people toward paid communication protocols and building in, you know, payments into communications, not to like earn tons of money, just to filter out the noise.
Yeah.
You know, you know, spam bot, you know, program to sort of reach as many people as possible is going to quickly run out of money, you know, if it takes 5-10 sats, right, to sort of initiate communications with a human being.
Yeah,
and so
these spam bots are trying to do it with millions of people at once. So.
Yeah. I mean that, and you know, that gets expensive. You know, so I think that you know, Sam Orbdude is gonna, you know, he has another vision, right? Like, it's not a coincidence that the same guy, you know, that started OpenAI has created this, you know, utterly, you know, creepy privacy poaching shitcoin that scans your eyeballs to verify who you are, because he knows that, you know, these AI powered bots are going to be everywhere, and you know, his you know, bet is that, you know, tech in general, builders, you know, companies are going to need ways to digitally verify real people, right? Unfortunately, the way he's going about it is very dystopian, you know,
very creepy,
and creepy. So, you know, I hope, I hope he doesn't, you know, build up much momentum. But you know, it is easy to envision a future where things like that are used, you know, to verify human identity. So I don't know, you know, we better build quick.
Yeah. Do Bitcoin or Nostr private public key pairs fix this in any way?
Yeah, I mean, keys for sure. The only problem with using keys to like verify your identity is like the only thing you can verify is that you hold the key, right? Not what is behind the key. So, for example, I could create AI powered bots that spin up Nostr keys, and fill out Nostr, a picture and profile information, and at a glance, like they look real, right? So we need something else to essentially add context, to these keys. Something like a social graph, like, okay, this looks like a legitimate person because like Marty and Lyle and like all these other people follow them and interact with them. So there are things we can build, but it doesn't solve exactly the same problem as what Sam Orbdude's trying to solve with the world coin, which is this is a human being.
Yeah.
And in fact, a specific human being. In that part, a specific human being is the where all the privacy concerns come from.
Yeah. No, I was trying to explain this problem to my wife in the car the other day. And I imagine there's going to be like similar to how smartphones have been normalized in our lives. Everybody has one in their pocket, walk around with it, most people. Something like a tap signer in your pocket that like when you send a tweet or a note on Nostr, you like tap sign, execute, sign with that private key. But then it's like, all right, going on the problem that you just described, like how do you know it wasn't like bots spinning up that? And then I was like, maybe you do need some like meat space verification, like a couple people verifying, like, hey, I saw Marty sign this key in person, like it is his.
Yeah, it's a, I mean, it's an unsolved problem. It's a difficult problem, but I, hope that it doesn't come down that like essentially existing on the internet requires people to, give up their privacy. That would be really, really bad. For like freedom in general. If that's sort of what happens. Worse than any CBDC. So yeah, hopefully we can build alternatives that that accomplish at least a similar goal.
Well, it's all happening so fast too.
Yeah, it is.
Which is, people need to be aware of this, and if you're capable, start thinking about this problem. And
I don't know. I'm sure we're gonna. I mean, if Vida continues to grow, we're gonna encounter this problem, right? Like we're gonna need to verify in some way that we're dealing with, not a bot, right? And so who knows? Maybe we can help add to the tooling in that regard.
Yeah. Now my mind's racing. Like, you can make the argument that there could be good bots out there providing value. Could they have Bitcoin wallets attached to them?
Yeah.
And like they're getting paid for providing value.
Yeah, for sure.
Able to interact. Like,
I mean, it seems reasonable to me that like if there are ever these sort of AI agents that are sort of moving around the internet, sort of autonomously, right? And if they are as smart as we fear they will be, right? I mean, to me, it's like it's obvious they're going to be Bitcoiners, because there's no better way to send value over the internet. There's no better way to have the assurances that your value is going to get where it needs to go. Like, there's no better currency to be acquiring if you were such, an AI agent. So, I mean, that seems, I don't know, maybe sci-fi and crazy, but the reality of Bitcoin to us will be just as real to any of these theoretical, autonomous AIs, that are sort of living in the interwebs.
Yeah, the hyper Bitcoinization dark horse is AI. Is like, oh crap, like this is better. Like, I'm trying to acquire as many sats as possible.
Yeah, I mean, we better acquire our own before we have to compete to acquire them with the AIs.
Yeah, that's another interesting thing. I wonder if I think I've seen rumblings of this beginning to bubble up. Do they get painted with the same brush as the Bitcoin mining industry, because it's going to take an insane amount of energy to do all this as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good question. It's, I mean, they probably won't get painted with the same brush because Senator Warren, doesn't hate, AI, but she, for whatever reason, they're threatened by Bitcoin. Right. But I don't know, maybe it will. I mean, for a long time, like gamers, hated Bitcoin and crypto in general because it made their GPU prices go up, but
Yeah.
now are they gonna, they're gonna hate, using these AI tools, for the same reason. I don't know, but they do, they are using a lot of power and consuming a lot of resources, and they're still very scarce. So it is in a way a similar story to ASICs and Bitcoin mining, I suppose.
Yeah. It's going to take a lot of energy. I mean, I just know from the Bitcoin mining industry, there's a lot of hosting providers in the mining space that are beginning to integrate GPU strategies because they see the opportunity.
Makes sense. Well, hopefully, maybe this will be more incentive for the, silicon fabrication industry to decentralize more.
Yeah.
We can hope.
And that's actually, people worry about this happening too fast. I think that will be the limiting factor, because we know this very well in the Bitcoin space. Like rack space to get an ASIC plugged in is the supply of rack space is very short right now.
Yeah.
And like we're working as hard as we can to build out infrastructure to plug in ASICs. You
Yeah.
have to imagine the GPUs are facing the same problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think what some people don't quite understand is it does take, tons of GPUs to actually train, your model. But a model operating at scale, the inferences cost just as much, at scale. So if anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about, so when you're training, an ML model of some kind, you call that training. When you have a trained model, weights, when you have weights you can use, to feed information into, that's called the inference process. So you're feeding in, the model is inferring, an output. And, they use GPUs for inference as well. Google has their own that they build, TensorFlow processing units, I think is what they're called. And that's an inference, a piece of hardware specifically for inference. But, takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of those GPUs to operate, something at scale. And I don't know, maybe they come up with some tech to make inference easier. I'm sure they will. It's kind of hard to predict what that will look like, but the world's a changing.
It is. Are you optimistic?
Yeah, always. I mean, we have Bitcoin. We're gonna eventually go back to sound money. You know, that's gonna create all sorts of positive. That's gonna fix so many misaligned incentives. In the world. I mean, yeah, I'm super hopeful.
Yeah, you've been in it for a minute. Excuse the rhyme. What got you into it originally? Was it sound money? Was it the tech?
Yeah, sound money. My grandfather was kind of a gold bug, and owned a ton of farmland, and that he acquired after we went off the gold standard, and and I have an undergrad degree in economics. So I've always sort of been interested in in money and in economics and stuff, and I guess in 2014, after Mt. Gox basically didn't kill Bitcoin, it was sort of a wake up call to me. I'm like, okay, well, if it didn't die, with the 80% of the exchange, the sort of the Bitcoin economy, going under with this thing, then it's probably not going to die, and then, sort of started falling down the rabbit hole, like everyone else. But yeah, I mean, sound money, fix the money, fix the world, as you always say. It's a very real thing to me. I don't know, not a lot of people know this, but I was also one of the authors of Thank God for Bitcoin with Jimmy Song and Breedlove. And,
it's up here somewhere.
Yeah. And that was, we wrote that during the the sort of the peak of the pandemic, you know, where the world is like turning into chaos, you know. And I think, you know, for all of us in a way, like it was kind of a way to deal with that, you know, to sort of reframe the world and sort of reframe the vision for the future with sound money and, you know, lower time preference and, you know, how things can change, you know, if we just stick with the basics, you know, bring people into Bitcoin as we can, you know, build in the ecosystem, you know, do our little pieces, and eventually, you know, we get to a world that's different.
Yeah. Thank God for Bitcoin.
Yeah. Thank God for Bitcoin.
We should mention, thank God for Bitcoin. We'll be in Miami next week too, 16th and 17th.
Yeah. Yeah. Props to Jordan, who has been like, you know, running ragged, putting that on. He's got an awesome set of speakers. I haven't been able to keep up with all the good guys that are going to be speaking there, but definitely, go by the Thank God for Bitcoin conference, which I think is on Tuesday
and Wednesday, I think.
Tuesday and Wednesday before. Definitely hit that up.
Or Wednesday and Thursday. I think it runs Wednesday and Thursday. 16th and 17th, I believe. I could be wrong.
That's Tuesday, Wednesday.
Okay.
17th is Wednesday.
All right.
Yeah.
That's on me.
Yeah. So, thank God for Bitcoin.
Yeah. Really. No, it does feel, I mean, our case popularized this, but it's almost like messianic, where it feels like this intervention God just came down during the banking crisis. Like, here you go.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's, there's all sorts of, you know, sort of good things that happen in the world that, you know, I don't know, can we attribute it to God or, you know, someone else or whatever, but I don't know, but I sure am happy it happened. You know, I'm happy it happened, and I'm happy that, you know, we have this other option for, you know, people to sort of free themselves from the shackles of fiat. I mean, you know, I know it sounds sort of ridiculous, you know, if you're listening to this and maybe you're a skeptic or whatever, but you know.
Well, I think the most important part of that phrase you just said is free yourself. Like, you don't have to vote harder. You don't have to like wait, hand out, looking to the government like, please do this. Like, you just free yourself. You can go build. You can build companies. You can build education platforms. You can write books and try to get the idea out there so that more people realize, like, hey, there's something here. You don't need to wait. You can take action.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if there's one thing that makes me most hopeful, you know, and confident about Bitcoin, it's the knowledge, it's the fact that every day there's people all over the world, just like me and you, doing their little piece of of their part to push Bitcoin a little further, you know, every day. It's a global thing. Like, people just don't realize it's global. You know, there are people everywhere, every day, you know, trying to push Bitcoin forward. And, you know, over time, work matters. Proof of work. You know, we change the world with our efforts, and nothing's going to stop that. You know, nothing's going to stop me and you and everyone else from waking up tomorrow and still, you know, wanting to push this, you know, ball down the field. I think that, you know, this work changes the world. You know, energy changes things, and we're all sort of pouring our life energy into manifesting, creating this reality that, you know, where this other option exists at scale, and, you know, we're going to win.
We are going to win. Thanks to people like you, people building out there. And the group of people building globally is only getting bigger by the day.
Yeah.
Which is massive to see. Thank you for doing what you do.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for inviting me on your show. It's been great.
And I really want to apologize. It was very rude of me to be texting. And I lied a little bit. My son doesn't have an illness. He got a rock stuck in his ear, and he's got to get it removed on Monday.
Well, family first.
Yeah. And so I had to answer a question from the doctor that my wife didn't know. It was a little urgent. So usually don't do that. I'm very sorry.
No. That's good. It's good. I've enjoyed how casual this has been. It's been good.
We like to keep it. It's comfortable here, isn't it?
It is. It's very comfy. It's a very comfy place.
What should we lead the freaks with? That was very inspirational, the last part that we just discussed. People waking up and working, but as it pertains to Vida, what you're doing, how can people help?
Try our products, give us feedback, earn some sats. If you produce content, try our products. We're trying to create useful things.
I will pay for your product.
Yeah.
I want you to know that. Like, if I can cut out Restream, support a Bitcoin company, Restream charges a lot. Like, it's
Yeah. I like what the saying, build things Bitcoiners want. You can always win. You can always at least win that game. Building things that other Bitcoiners are going to use. But hopefully we can, do a lot more than that too.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a content producer, like we said, Restream, Riverside, I mean, in some regards, like YouTube, with everything being up there, like it's all possible in Vida, and you get paid in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Sats.
Let's see how many sats we've stacked during this live stream. Get into the room. Wow, 7,000 sats. Let's go.
There we go.
I'll take it.
Yeah, you guys need to zap some more next time.
And we've got
Now we need to put a sponsorship on your profile so that anybody watching your show going forward can earn sats. That's what we need to do.
Yeah.
I meant to set that up for today, and then I kind of dropped the ball.
Well, this is the value of Vida. Jordan, who's running the Thank God for Bitcoin conference next week, he's zapped. So now, as a host, I feel compelled to read his message, which is go to tgfb.com/conference. Use the promo code SWAN for 20% off. Pish, Foss, Gladstein, BTC Sessions, Hersman, Paul Miller, Mills, Justin Moon, Skylar, Mark Moss, Bree Love, Beauty on a bunch more.
Hell yeah.
Will be there. And Jordan also said, let us pay you, Lyle.
No, it's going to be a good conference. Y'all definitely hit that up when you're in Miami.
Yeah. I'll see you down there.
Yeah, for sure. See you there.
All right. Go forth and build, freaks. We're going to win. Peace and love.